Welcome once again. Now, world leaders are gathered in New York for the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly, and the divisions, well, could not be more pronounced. From renewed tensions in the Middle East to escalating conflicts in Eastern Europe and Africa, the global stage is testing the limits of diplomacy. The United States, Russia and China have all used their speeches to restate entrenched positions, while smaller nations pressed urgent cases for climate justice, humanitarian relief, and global trade fairness. But beyond the speeches, the stakes are high for billions across the globe. Aid pledges remain uncertain. Wars continue to uproot communities, and trust in multilateral institutions is under strain. The diplomatic test at UNGA 2025 is whether leaders can move beyond rhetorics to meaningful action, or whether these divides will further weaken international cooperation at a time of global crisis.
And this is not the first time the United Nations has faced such a fracture. Similar gridlock marked sessions during the Cold War and again after the Iraq War. For Africa, where conflicts, coups, and debt burdens weigh heavily, the outcomes of hunger discussions could have direct consequences on security and development. Joining us now to unpack these challenges are political scientist Kenneth, Nweke, and legal practitioner Tonye, Jaja. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for joining us at Breakfast Extra.
Good morning, sirs. Good morning, Prof. Good morning, Jaja. Good to have you guys here.
Good morning.
So, do you want to begin?
Ladies first today. Thank you, Mazino. So let's begin with Kenneth. Can you tell us what you observed at the UNGA so far? Though a lot of people have been tuning in to see, you know, some people worked out, some people were cheering, some people got claps. How would you describe the tone among the world leaders? Do you think that this time around the conversations were genuine?
Of course, every country that comes to UNGA comes with something that it want to push, you know, before UNGA, of course. And I don't think that anyone would expect anything less. The world is going through a lot of changes. The economy, you know, so much politically, so much socially, and all of those. And so it is expected that whatever that faces your country and how you would leverage on the United Nations platform to getting whatever reliefs or advantages that you want to push, of course you do that. And so it's expected, including Africa, of course, is the worst hit in terms of economy, in terms of the politics and all of those things. And so when you talk about recognition within the global community, of course, you see all the time that Africa will be pushing, or African countries will be pushing to be recognized. And it makes us become very defensive, so to say, you know, when we go to global events or global, when we have access to global platforms. And so it makes us look beggarly, so to say. Even when the other world leaders are also asking for certain things, of course, they may not be down home in their places, in their localities and all that. Of course, they are not also suffering. I mean, they are not suffering what we are suffering here. Here we are suffering insecurity, we are suffering governance. But that's, I mean, that's not what the other ones are suffering. They are looking at how to gain some more advantages globally, you know, for their people. And so the point I'm trying to make is that it's expected, and whether people are being commended or being cheered, or people being lukewarm and all that within when they make presentations and all that, for me, it doesn't actually make any meaning. But what makes meaning to me here down home is not about what we present before the international community. It is about what is the reality down home.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Prof. Let me come to Jaja. Jaja, so first off, Africa has always been asking for reform, especially when it comes to the Security Council. We've been asking for a permanent seat. But this has been a rhetoric. There's been something that every African nation has continued to, ask for the past many years. And we saw our Vice President, Kashim Shettima, he also reiterated that again this year. What will it take for the UN to actually recognize Nigeria, Africa even?
Okay. I would like to say if the Vice President does not want to be labeled as a comedian, let him leave comedy for Ali Baba and the others. It's a contradiction. One of your presenters, contradiction. You're asking for a permanent seat on the UN Security Council. Notice the name, Security Council. And your country is not secure. It's a contradiction. You have not dealt with security in your backyard, and you think you would have a permanent seat at the UN Council. That's a serious body. The UN is governed by international law. In Nigeria, once you sign up to any international treaty, such as the UN Charter, you are bound to abide by those the laws that govern them. The Supreme Court of Nigeria in Abacha versus Fahimi had stated that once any country, including Nigeria, ratifies an international treaty, you are bound by its obligations. So before you make a push for a permanent seat at the UN Council, there are certain criteria you have to meet. One of which is securing your country, showing that you have security in your country. Have we met that? The UN has 17 sustainable development goals. Out of the 17, how many have you met as a country, Nigeria, before you start making demands to become a permanent member of the Security Council? That is serious business. It's not comedy show. Let the Vice President leave comedy for Ali Baba and I go die.
Well, Kenneth, it's very interesting that you should say that, because this is actually a rhetoric that most people have been talking about since after his speech.
Yes, yes.
However, I think we must get to the big deal. The biggest speech of the event was actually the President Trump's speech. Now, he touched on very many aspects of, well, security. He also touched on Africa as well. So, Jaja, I wanted to know, how much of an implication did his concerns about immigration and the rest of the world opening their doors to immigrants, especially from Africa, have on us as Africans, seen as we are always on the hunt for greener pastures? This is going to affect us how exactly in the long run? Jaja, please.
I want to say, don't shoot the messenger. Listen to the message. Donald Trump has a tactless way of speaking. That's his manner of speaking. He has no tact, no diplomacy. But the message he's sending, there's sense in his message. When you analyze his message, Donald Trump is not against migration or a total ban on migration. He's saying there has to be laws that govern migration. And countries who have signed up to the UN Charter on Migration, the laws that govern migration should prevent illegal. There's something called illegal migration. That's what Donald Trump is saying, and he's correct. You don't just wake up, you don't solve the problem in your country, you transfer it to another country. Illegal immigrants, that's what Donald Trump is saying. Countries owe it a responsibility under international law to prevent illegal migration. I am a migrant. Currently I'm in the Kingdom of Lesotho. I came here as an European Union consultant. That is legal migration. You go to another country to help do some work. So Donald Trump is not speaking on a blanket ban on migration. What he's saying is countries owe it a duty to prevent illegal migration. That's what he's saying. Right. And I agree with him. The only thing I do not agree with Donald Trump is about climate change. For him to call climate change a con job, a scam, I do not agree with him.
Right. Thank you, Jaja, for that. Now, Professor Kenneth, I just wanted to know, for Africa in particular, how do these global divides affect the continent's ability to push its own agenda at the UNGA?
Of course, you ought to be demoralized, assuming there's, and I believe that's what could have happened, a prepared speech, for Vice President who is representing Nigeria. Even if we want to vilify him, we shouldn't vilify him as a person, as an individual. We should vilify, the country, Nigeria, so to say, or the Nigerian state, not Kashim, because, he was sent there to represent the country. And so he's doing the bit of who sent him. And if he has turned it to become, what do you call it, become comedy, then so be it. But he is representing Nigeria, so he's speaking for Nigeria, so to say. But when we want for me to interrogate or attack, I should be attacking our political leadership, in country, for going out there. And so, of course, generally it would affect Africa in pushing for whatever reforms at that level. When you push for things, when you have speeches prepared for you, even if it was the president of Nigeria, probably a speech already prepared for him to push at UNGA. Of course, you will also ensure that he does the job as it were. But having to listen to other world leaders, what they are also asking, and the kind of growing concerns, within the global community and the divides that we are experiencing. People, countries pushing for different things that affect them. For instance, the United States, under Trump, pushing against illegal migration. Mm-hmm. They are talking about things that affect them. They are not, in the United States of America, for instance, nobody's talking about electricity. Nobody's talking about bad roads. Nobody's talking about insecurity to the extent that we are experiencing here in Nigeria. So like other countries, advanced countries, or even less developed countries, nobody's talking about some of the things that we talk about in Nigeria, unfortunately. And so when you find yourself as Africans, within the committee of these nations, and then they are pushing for certain other things that ordinarily you are against you as a continent. Of course, if I were handed over a script to read, I'll be demoralized in even pushing for certain things that concern our country. Because already, if we have consciences as a people, even when we go for such events, it will be very, very shameful that you are pushing for instance, membership of the Security Council, while your own house is not in order. So you've not been able to put your house in order in terms of security. You've not been able to put your house in order in terms of governance. And then you want to go and govern who? Who do you want to go back home? I think that whoever that sent Kashim there, he wasn't there on his own accord. Let him come back. Let him come back. Mm-hmm. And stop pushing for some of those things he's pushing. Until we're able to get things right in this country. We shouldn't be pushing for any other thing, because he makes mockery. For instance, as a professor, I had the opportunity to attend a World Conference of Political Science in Seoul in July. And I had the opportunity to interact with my colleagues all over the world, including senior colleagues from an African origin who are in those countries. It was almost like on a dinner table for me to run under the table, sharing with them what I aim on a monthly basis, mm-hmm. what opportunities that I have to come to the conference on my own, or even if I had been granted a TED fund, sponsorship, I didn't get the money. until, I got back home and started pushing for it. And so how many Nigerians also had the opportunities of traveling for such World Conference of Political Science? That's the highest body of political science, in the world. And so, but these colleagues came, sponsored, fully sponsored. Then even if they needed to take beer, outside the conference, it was sponsored. And so the point I'm trying to make is that, we had to, I had almost run under the table, before these guys. That's how Kashim, who is representing Nigeria today, and talking about, membership of the Security Council, you should ordinarily run under the table when other countries are discussing things that should not, affect their economies. All
right, Professor, thank you very much for that submission. But I want to come back to Jaja here. Jaja, I'm going to take you on something that you said. While you agree with President Trump, fantastic. Now, he's positioned immigration as the grand spoiler of the world. He told other nations that you're all going to hell because you allow this. However, he downplayed climate change. He said climate change was the biggest con job ever. Now, let's juxtapose these two together. The reason why most Africans actually look for greener pastures is because we suffer the brunt of climate change. Our floods are bigger, our landslides are bigger, our rains are just everything. Africa is facing the brunt of climate change. So these are contradicting facts here. If he says climate change isn't real, and yet again he's also talking against immigration, how do you explain that contradiction? How do you defend that contradiction, Jaja?
As I said, Donald Trump is a tactless person. He has no iota of diplomacy in his body. It was 2006, the former US Vice President, Al Gore, he did a documentary called An Inconvenient Truth. He presented evidence that climate change is real, is affecting the world. So for Donald Trump to come and say it's a con job, that I do not agree with him. Now, where I agree with him is, if you want to migrate to another country, there are legal routes, there are legal ways to go about it. And that is where Donald Trump, I do not agree with Donald Trump. For example, America was built by scientists who were running from persecution in Nazi Germany during the Second World War. Albert Einstein is an example. He escaped Nazi Germany. He became a professor in the US, and he helped them in science. So migration is a positive thing when used in accordance with the laws. There are laws that govern migration. If you abide by those laws, then it's a good thing. As I said, I am currently not in Nigeria. I am in the Kingdom of Lesotho. And what I find, the country adopts a practical foreign policy method. For example, Donald Trump called this Lesotho, he said, I've not even heard of this kind of country. But they did not take it as an insult. The Kingdom of Lesotho sent delegates, diplomats, to the US to negotiate, because Donald Trump said there's going to be a ban on US foreign aid, especially in health. And this is a country that is affected by HIV. They had to send diplomats to Donald Trump, to the US, and negotiated a new treaty between the Kingdom of Lesotho and the US. That's a practical approach, one-on-one, a bilateral treaty. Please, can you soften the ground for us? Don't just write us off for when it comes to US foreign aid. And that's what they did. So every country must think about practical foreign policy approaches to this thing, not a blanket this thing. For example, our vice president going there to ask for debt relief. You ask for debt relief. Meanwhile, these foreign countries are reading how your National Assembly and your president are taking loans every day. You're making a mockery. That's why I said the vice president should leave comedy for Alibaba and I go die. You can't be talking of these things when people are seeing you, you're taking loans every day, then you go to the UNGA and you're asking for debt relief. It's a contradiction, as one of your presenters has mentioned.
All right, Jaja, real quick, I wanted to ask Professor Kenneth this same question, but in another kind of light. Now, Professor Jaja has just noted that, yes, Trump is all for legal migration. However, we had a stoppage on U.S. aid support when it comes to health here in Africa. We've also had the situation where he has deliberately told $100,000 for H-1B visas. These are little mechanisms that seem to tell that we don't want you here. It's not a question of whether it's legal or not, because these impositions are pushing out foreigners, pushing out migrants. Professor, please, what's your take on this?
That's what I said. While people are talking, countries like the United States of America are talking about inactions of developing nations, and I don't know where to even classify Nigeria, whether it's a developing nation. Of course, it is not developing anything. So underdeveloped, no nation. Nothing is developing here. So for me, while some of those countries are talking about how to dissuade immigrants from Africa and other countries. We are talking about debt relief. We are talking about aid. We're talking about Lesotho. Of course, now going to ask, for some concessions about health, support because of the increase in HIV cases that they have in the country. And for Trump, it's a waste to begin to, how long can you continuously carry the burden of nations? You carry their burdens. Somebody is going to ask for a debt relief. While in country, corruption is thriving. While in country, we have continuously encouraged looting. And so why will we encourage people from Africa and other nations to, why will he encourage them to come into his country? While we are not doing everything that is possible to, deep into the problems of our economy and improve the lot of our people. And because that's what is pushing all of us, leaving our countries, our own country or countries in Africa to those countries, because we have not been able to fix our own country. And so no right-thinking leader will sit back and watch that other leaders are busy sampling, their resources, and then either bringing them into other countries illegally, and then you're asking on one hand for debt relief, the same people, and then you're asking, to go and sit as a permanent member of the Security Council, sit to preside over what? To preside over, places that are more secure than, your own place.
Okay,
so for me, why Donald Trump is championing the cause of discouraging illegal immigrants or even legal. As I speak to you now, I've been trapped because I needed to renew, do a drop box for my US visa, and I had paid, and because I don't even know what the system offers right now, whether I'm going to do a drop box, is it 3 months single entry, or is it a multi? I don't also understand as it is right now, because I have a genuine cause to be in Nigeria, and I have no need to run away from this country, because I don't have any need to do so right now. But for those who have need to do so, of course they are forced to leave this country because we've not been able to do what we ought to do. So let's not blame Donald Trump for what he's doing. Let's fix our country, and so that our people will remain.
Thank you so much, Professor Kenneth, for that, amazing insights. And of course, thank you, Tonye, Jaja, for joining us. It was really an amazing insight. God bless you both.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.